So I think we've all seen this struggle with model distillation lately. You take a giant reasoning model, you generate tons of chain of thought data.
And you just feed it to a smaller model.
Exactly. But the small model doesn't actually learn to reason. It just gets really verbose. It mimics the sound of thinking, but there's nothing underneath.
It's the classic cargo cult problem in AI, right? Copying the form, but totally missing the function.
Yeah.
And that is why this new paper, The Molecular Structure of Thought, is, well, it's hitting so hard.
Yeah, this is the one from ByteDance Seed and Peking University. And their core argument is that we're visualizing reasoning itself completely wrong.
They're saying it's not a linear string of words. It's more like a protein. It has a structure, and it needs to fold correctly, or else it just falls apart.
Which is their Molson hypothesis. So
Yeah.
let's get into it. They break it down into these three logical bonds that hold a thought together.
Right, and this isn't just a metaphor. They obviously map these to specific model behaviors.
Okay, let's start with the backbone. They call it deep reasoning, which they compare to covalent bonds.
Yeah, the strong ones. This is your classic local deduction. Step A leads directly to step B. It's rigid.
But, and I found this fascinating, that's not enough. If you only have that straight line of logic.
The model hallucinates.
Yeah.
Every time. The chain gets too long, it becomes unstable, and it just drifts off target.
So it needs to fold, which brings in the hydrogen bonds. In the paper, this is self-reflection.
Exactly. This is the crucial part. It's a non-local check. So step 50 has to be able to, bond back to step 1 to make sure everything is still consistent.
So the reasoning has to loop back on itself to stay stable.
Without that folding, the whole logical structure just denatures and collapses.
And the third bond, the weaker one.
Van der Waals forces. They map this to self-exploration. This is sort of the model's ability to branch out, to test a new idea without fully committing to it. A weak attraction to a distant concept.
You need all three then. The rigid logic, the reflection to keep it stable, and the exploration to find new paths.
You need that balance. It's a chemical structure.
What I found really compelling was how they showed this isn't just about, keywords. It's not about teaching the model to say therefore or let me double check that.
Right. They busted that myth completely. They ran these experiments where they stripped all those signaling words out, and the model still learned to reason.
Because it wasn't learning words, it was learning the underlying structure.
It was recognizing the bonds. But this leads to, I think, the biggest takeaway for anyone building models right now, the idea of semantic isomers.
This explains so much. So, just like in chemistry, you can have the same atoms, the same concepts, but arranged in different shapes.
Yes, and some shapes are stable reasoning, and others are just useless. They tried an experiment where they mixed training data from DeepSeek R1 and one of OpenAI's models.
You'd think more high-quality data is always better.
But it caused what they called structural chaos. The student model just collapsed.
Because the teacher models have different isomers, different stable shapes of thought.
Exactly. DeepSeek might fold its logic one way, OpenAI another. The student model gets these conflicting signals on how to build the bonds, and the learning signal is destroyed. You can't just Frankenstein these things together.
So how does their solution, Molson, actually fix this?
Well, instead of just copying text, they synthesize new data. They built a transition graph that calculates the probability of switching between these three states: reasoning, reflecting, and exploring.
So they forced the small model to learn the rhythm, the topology of the thought process itself.
That's a perfect way to put it. And the results were, incredible. It stabilized RL training for the smaller models, and they actually matched the performance of the huge teacher models.
It's a shift from training on words to training on the geometry of an argument.
Which brings us to their final, very provocative point, the one about summarization.
Right. This is huge for the open source world. If you take a long chain of thought and summarize it to save on your context window.
You are literally breaking the bonds. You destroy the hydrogen bonds, the self-reflection loops, and the whole reasoning structure just flattens out. It becomes useless.
So if you compress the thought, you kill the intelligence. The secret isn't in the final answer. It's in the uncompressed, messy 3D geometry of the entire process.
We could be moving into a world where we analyze the shape of a model's thinking instead of just reading the words. A true geometry of thought.
What a wild idea. It really makes you rethink everything about curating training data. Thanks for walking through this with me.
Anytime. It's fascinating stuff.
And thanks to all of you for listening. We'll have a link to the paper in the show notes. We'll see you on the next deep dive.